My name is Iko Voss. Until 3 weeks ago, I had the most boring job in the whole archive. I want to tell you what happened, because it still feels strange to me, even now. I work for the Thren Sector Salvage Registry. That is a long name for a simple place. It is a huge storage station, almost as big as a small moon, filled with broken ships, empty stations, and lost cargo. Nobody wants any of it. My job is to check each item one last time before it gets sent to the melters and turned into raw metal. Most days, nothing interesting happens. I open a file, I read a report, I press a button, and the item is marked for destruction. That is the whole job. Then I found case 4471K. It was an old file. A group of Vishari salvagers found the wreck 41 years ago, floating alone in a system with no name. Their report was short, only 4 lines. It said the ship had no power, no signs of life, and a strange hull that their scanners could not read properly. They marked it as low priority and moved on. After that, nobody looked at it again. It just sat in storage, waiting, while newer and shinier finds took everyone's attention. I only opened the file because the melters were coming next month, and it is my job to check everything one final time before it is destroyed. It was supposed to take 5 minutes. Instead, it changed everything. The report said the scanner could not read the hull properly. Most clerks would read that line and move on. I almost did too, but something made me pause. Instead of trusting the short summary, I opened the raw scanner data. I do this out of habit. I used to work with old paper records back on Earth, long before I left home, and I learned early that summaries can hide mistakes. A machine does not lie on purpose, but a tired person writing a short report might miss something important, so I always check the original data if I can. When I looked at the raw scan, I saw something strange. It was not empty static, like the report said. There was a pattern hidden inside the noise. It looked like the scanner was trying to show something, but its resolution was too low to capture it clearly. It was like trying to read tiny handwriting through a foggy window. I borrowed better equipment from the materials lab a few floors below me. This kind of equipment is normally used to study very old and valuable objects, not junk waiting to be melted. A lab technician named Dost Kaun helped me set it up. Dost is careful and does not get excited easily, so when he leaned toward the screen and went very quiet, I knew something important was happening. The hull sample was not made of any material either of us recognized. It was built in tiny, careful layers, smaller than anything our tools normally study. Dost looked at me and said, "This could not have happened by accident. Someone had built it this way on purpose." That was the moment I understood. This was not an ordinary piece of scrap, but I still did not know how strange it really was. Over the next 11 days, we borrowed more equipment. Some of it was very hard to get approval for, because it is normally used to study ancient historical objects, not salvage bound for the melters. I had to explain, again and again, why this old wreck deserved more attention. Each time, I felt a little silly, like I was making a fuss over nothing. But every new test showed the same thing. This hull was unlike anything in any record we had. Finally, we used a special imaging tool that can measure the age of very old materials. This tool is usually reserved for studying relics from long before recorded history. When the results came back, Dost checked the numbers twice. Then he checked them a third time. He was sure there had been a mistake. There was no mistake. The wreck was over 41,000 years old. I want you to understand how big that number really is. The oldest civilization we have solid proof of, called the Thren Ascendancy, is about 19,000 years old. This wreck was more than double that age. It was older than anything anyone had ever confirmed before, and it had been sitting quietly in a storage bin with a low-priority sticker on it for 41 years, while people like me walked past it every single day. I remember sitting alone in the lab that night, staring at the number on the screen. I did not feel proud or excited at first. I felt small. The universe suddenly felt much bigger and much older than I had ever imagined. Somewhere out there, a long, long time ago, someone had built this ship with skill far beyond anything we could match, and their work had been treated like garbage simply because nobody had taken the time to look closely. I followed the correct steps. I wrote a full report and sent it up through the proper channels, expecting my part in this to end quietly there. That is normal. Most discoveries get handed off to bigger teams, and the person who first noticed something becomes a small note in a much longer story. I was ready for that. I even looked forward to going back to my quiet desk and my quiet job. That is not exactly what happened. A senior Vishari registrar reviewed my report personally. During our first meeting, she asked me a simple question. She wanted to know why I had checked the raw scanner data instead of trusting the original summary, since almost no one else would have bothered. I did not have a clever answer ready. I told her the truth. Long before I left my home planet, I worked with historical records, the kind written on paper by people, not machines. Paper records can be wrong. People make mistakes, skip details, or write things quickly without noticing something important. I learned to always check the original source whenever possible, because the story someone tells about a thing is not always the same as the thing itself. A summary is written by someone hoping to finish a task. Raw data has no such reason to hide anything. She wrote my answer down carefully. I did not think much of it at the time. Later, I learned that this idea was shared with other teams as an example of how humans tend to double-check even simple conclusions, including their own. I still do not know if that was meant as praise or as a warning. Eventually, a full team was assembled to open the ship properly. This process took great care, with many safety steps I still do not fully understand. I was not senior enough to join the team that went inside, and for a moment, that disappointed me. But by then, the discovery had grown much bigger than my part in it. It was no longer about who found it first. It was about what waited inside. What they found inside was almost impossible to describe using anything we already knew. The rooms were not shaped the way any known species builds their ships. The technology inside used ideas that several research teams are still arguing about weeks later. And deep inside, in a sealed room built with extra care, they found something that looked very much like a message, left behind on purpose. Nobody has been able to translate it yet. 41,000 years is an extremely long time. Whoever built this ship might have used a language, or even a way of thinking, that no living species remembers or understands anymore. Still, the message sits there, patiently. Exactly the way the ship itself sat patiently for tens of thousands of years, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it. I still work at the archive. My job has not really changed on paper. I still open old files, sort broken machines, and decide what gets kept and what gets sent away. But something in me has changed. Now, I check the raw data on almost everything, even boxes marked completely routine, even when I am tired, even when I am almost certain there is nothing special to find. Case 4471K was also marked as nothing special for 41 long years, by people who had every reason to trust that label. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how close that wreck came to being melted down and lost forever. If the timing had been slightly different, if I had been busy that week, if someone else had processed the file instead of me, this discovery might never have happened. That thought does not make me feel proud. It makes me feel careful. It reminds me that important things can hide in plain sight for a very long time, simply because nobody stopped to look twice. I think about all the other boxes still sitting quietly in this enormous storage station. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. Each one has a short report attached, written quickly by someone doing their job as fast as they reasonably could. Most of those reports are probably correct. Most of those items probably really are just old scrap, waiting to be recycled into something new and useful. But maybe not all of them. That thought keeps me at my desk a little longer these days. I find myself opening files I would have skipped before, just to be sure. Most of the time, I find exactly what the report says I should find. Nothing more, nothing surprising. That is normal, and I have learned to be at peace with it. Discoveries like the wreck do not happen every day, or even every year. They are rare. Precisely because they require patience most people do not have time to spend. Still, I keep checking anyway. My colleagues sometimes tease me a little now, calling me the clerk who found the impossible. I always tell them the same thing. I did not find anything impossible. I simply looked at something that was already there, sitting quietly, waiting for someone to notice it properly. The wreck did not appear from nowhere. It had been there the entire time, 41,000 years old, patient beyond anything we can truly imagine, hidden behind a short and honest but incomplete report. I like to think that somewhere out there, whoever built that ship knew their work would last. Maybe they built it to survive exactly this kind of long, quiet wait, trusting that someone, someday, would finally take the time to look closely enough to understand what they had left behind. I do not know if I will ever get to read their message. Translating something that old may take years, or it may never be fully possible at all. But I like knowing it is being studied carefully now, instead of being melted down and lost forever, in a moment of carelessness. Every day, I walk past thousands of quiet boxes on my way to my desk. Most of them hold nothing more than old metal and forgotten cargo. But now I always wonder, just for a second, if one of them might be hiding something extraordinary, waiting patiently for someone to finally stop, look closer, and ask the right question. So I keep checking, not because I expect to find another impossible ship every week. I check because now I understand something I did not fully understand before. Sometimes the most important discoveries are not hidden behind secret doors or locked vaults. Sometimes they are simply sitting quietly in an ordinary file, waiting for someone patient enough and curious enough to look twice.